Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Rosa and Rubini podcast, Making Sense of This World. My name is Manas Chavla, and as always, I'm really pleased to be joined by CEO and Head of Research, Brunello Rosa. Brunello, this week we're talking about the much-awaited Trump-Putin summit, which ended with no results, but a result that, Putin can possibly claim victory over, at least for his domestic audience in Russia. I mean, it really was quite an unprecedented thing. I don't think Putin's been on American soil, in many, many years. Hasn't met an American president there, I think, since 2017. And they had a 3-hour meeting in Alaska, out of which came a few minutes press conference. What did we learn from this meeting, Brunello, and what happened in the days afterwards?
So you're right. Putin hasn't been in the US for uh, several years. Most presidents didn't want to see him, definitely not on American soil, and definitely not Biden will define him as war criminal. And we knew that at that point, any potential compromise with him would be impossible. You cannot shake hands with a war criminal. We said that at the time this happened, which effectively precluded the possibility of signing a peace deal between Putin and Zelensky at the time. And the idea by Biden was defeating Putin. Clearly, things have gone in a different way. And they had this meeting, which was highly unconventional in so many respects. At the end of which, they had this 12 minutes press conference where nothing was actually revealed. Somebody called about the return of secret diplomacy, which was the way it was done in the 19th century, if you want. Others say, no, it was just a form of respect because then Trump had to call them his allies and explain what Putin wanted. So they didn't want to anticipate on the press before they interested people. So, of course, plenty of controversy. But the entire point of this is that Putin really scored a few points. First of all, let's not forget he's under investigation on the International Criminal Court that has an arrest warrant on his head. And the fact that he could land on American soil, stay there, and leave was already a victory, considering whatever happened to him if he goes somewhere else. He could even go on the Cadillac One, which is Trump's personal car, which you can imagine is full of secrets in itself, showing that to what used to be the number one adversary geopolitically seems like something that we couldn't even think about. During the press conference, he could speak as first person, which is also unprecedented, considering he was the guest. And he could explain for several minutes what he thought the profound causes of the war were, instead of having uh, any debate with Trump. And actually, made him another favor. He said once again, "Oh, Russia didn't meddle at all in the 2016 election. Mark my word." And this is against what the U.S. intelligence said. Uh, but why would Trump say anything different, considering he would have been the one benefiting from the Russian meddling? So, he was full of things that Putin can clearly put under his hat and saying that it was back on the world scene, back recognized as a world leader at par with the Americans, not just a regional power but a global power. So I think really a number of things in his favor.
Yeah. I mean, the sort of mainstream, media and analysis sort of expectations going into the summit weren't particularly high. But did Trump gain anything from this meeting? Did the Europeans get anything out of this meeting? What's your read of that?
So Trump effectively reinforced the message that the end of the war can only happen if America is involved. If he personally is involved, the Europeans, Ukraine, and so on are just second-tier actors that can be informed when things are decided somewhere else. The other thing is that clearly at the time of the meeting, there was huge problems with the MAGA base regarding the Epstein files. He really needed something big to divert their attention. I think he definitely achieved that. The other thing is that we spoke about that in the previous column. and podcasts about the Yalta 2.0 agreement. If Trump is really aiming at this meeting with Putin and Xi, where they will effectively divvy up the world in three spheres of influence, it was absolutely needed to have this preliminary step of a meeting with Putin himself. We know that Xi and Putin are already in excellent terms, and Xi and Putin and Trump can meet anytime for various reasons, and they've actually done in the past. Will do so more in the future. But without the meeting between Trump and Putin, a Yalta 2.0 type of meeting would be impossible to even conceive. So this is now done. And as we know, Trump really is aiming at this Nobel Peace Prize, which I think is far-fetched, but he thinks that with this meeting he got one step closer. What about the Europeans? If anything, is one risk averted, and the risk is that we could be back to a Munich 1938 type of situation where Trump agrees that Putin gets his own Sudetenland, which will be the Donbass, just for teasing. And clearly that would be a massive risk. And thank God this didn't happen. So to some extent, I think this is what the Europeans can say got away with this meeting.
Yeah, yeah. And last question. I mean, we've talked sort of again and again about sort of Yalta 2.0 kind of form of meeting. Why do you think this is more likely after this meeting, and particularly in the events that came after that weekend? Where do you think the diplomacy goes from here?
Because and before the meeting, Putin was considered a sort of pariah of the international community. Nobody wanted really to be seen besides him, at least in the West. These things were different in the so-called global South. So we need to be aware of that. It was very much a Western perception that it was isolated. It wasn't fully isolated, definitely. It was isolated in the West, and now this is gone. It got the legitimacy from the leader of the Western world, which is the US president. And so we needed that recognition. The second thing is that by meeting with Trump, it made it clear that Russia is not just a regional power, but is a global power that can decide global issues that go beyond his own immediate neighborhood. And then the third thing is that Trump has started to sell the idea that territorial compromises are needed in order for a peace deal to be made at any point in time. And we know there are several territorial disputes that have been discussed and around the globe. And Trump is making it clear that territorial concessions are part of something that is at the negotiating table. However hurting this could be for national feelings and so on, but it might be necessary. So a series of factors, I think, has made Yalta 2.0 slightly more likely after this meeting.
Yeah. I think it was Lenin who once said that there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen. It seems like this sort of recent flurry of diplomacy is certainly one of those, or the start of one of those weeks. So something we'll obviously continue to watch very closely. As always, Brunello, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you very much. Until next time.